Hi.
Hi, give me 2 seconds.
Okay.
Let me just shut the door. 1 sec.
Right.
Sorry, I don't want my cats to come running in, and they're really noisy and they'll run in and just go "Meow," like so. I wanted to make sure it was quiet.
How are you?
I'm all right, thank you. How are you?
I'm good. Yeah, I'm just doing like an online like uni assignment about how like women's health is overlooked in the NHS and just neglected and ignored. So I'd love to hear about your experience.
Yeah. Firstly, what do you study?
Journalism.
Oh, cool. So I'm a writer too. I'm not a journalist.
Okay.
I'm a copywriter, so I do the saley bit of what you do.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we're similar. Right, so I've had issues with the NHS for forever. I have endometriosis, and I went to the doctors basically every week from when I was about 16, saying, please, there's something wrong, you need to do something. And they always said it's something to do with digestion, or it could be they actually said for a good few years it's like it's in your head, and they say it doesn't mean that if it's in your head it doesn't feel real, like it is, the pain is there, but when you're stressed it causes that pain. But I was like, I'm not stressed and I'm fine. And then I got my mum to come with me. And I said, like, I can't do this. They're not listening to me. And my mum's pretty good at kicking off.
Yeah.
So, she yelled at them and said, right, you are going to do an inspection. And then eventually we saw a specialist, but it took us, 5 years to get to then. And it was like, I was training to be a teacher, and I didn't do like a uni PGCE route. I did my degree, and then I went back for a year and did a schools direct course. So that means that I was teaching throughout my training, like Monday to Friday, as a normal teacher would. And I had to take off so much time because I couldn't walk. I was in so much pain, I couldn't walk. And usually with endometriosis, it's cyclical. And so you know that week will be horrible towards the end of the month, but mine isn't cyclical because it spread to my bowel and stuff. So it was just there all the time because they wouldn't do anything.
Yeah.
So eventually we managed to persuade them to have a look. And then when they did, they saw a lot. And I felt better after that, but it took a long time, and then it grew back really, really quickly. So there was that, completely overlooked. But then, to be honest, I've forgiven that a little bit. What I can't forgive is, so in September, late August, I found out that I was pregnant. Planned, very wanted, really excited. It was great. And then I went into hospital because I was having pains at like 5 weeks or so. And they said to me, they treated me really well then because I was pregnant.
Yeah.
So they did treat me well, and they checked and they made sure that everything was fine. I had to stay in hospital for the day. They did a scan, and then they made me come in 10 days later. And I was like, oh, okay, this is better. And I assumed that because there was a baby involved, then it suddenly becomes more, we need to make sure she's okay. But then at our 12-week scan, everything was fine up until 12 weeks. And then we had a scan, and they said that no heartbeat, baby had stopped growing at about 9 weeks. And then they made me go home, and they said, right, you've got 3 options. The doctors will call you later. So this was at like 10 in the morning. And I had to wait till, I think it was 5 o'clock for anyone to call me. And obviously this was quite a big shock. And I desperately just wanted them to call me and say, right, this is the plan. What do you want to do? It took ages. So then when they did call me, I was still in shock. Like I didn't react yet because it didn't process.
No support emotionally at all.
None. So they said, right, okay, so tomorrow, because we decided to go medical route, because they said that you could just wait and let it happen naturally, but for me that's not, I think it's more torture, isn't it? Like you're just waiting for this to happen. It could happen any time. So we said medical, fine, but I didn't want surgery because they said that if you go surgical, you have to wait for like 7 to 10 days. I thought, well, how can you make me wait that long? So we went with the only option we had. And that was the medical route. So they, like, you essentially give birth, but you can do it at home. And that for me was great because I got to be near my cats, in my own room. And if I wanted to cry, I could, like I was safe. Went in, that was fine, got home, but then I started, it was bad. It got really bad. I hemorrhaged, lost a lot of blood, ended up going into A&E. And to be fair, to their credit, they work really well under pressure. Like I felt that when it was an emergency, that's when they did act, and they did look after me. And I will never say otherwise. They were brilliant in that moment because it was emergency, as in running, get it sorted, because I was losing so much blood. And I hadn't, even though I'd been pushing for hours, the baby hadn't left. It was still perfectly intact. So I physically couldn't do it. I don't know what I was passing, but there was a lot of it. But my issue came after. So they said to me that night, I was dizzy and I didn't know what was going on, obviously. It took me saying, I'm going to leave unless my partner can come in. They wouldn't let me in.
Really?
Yeah.
So you're alone in the hospital?
Yeah, I was on my own. I was totally alone after going through something like this, where, I mean, this impacts both of us. It's not just me.
Yeah.
And I was in a really bad way. And the only way that I was going to stay there was if he was allowed to be with me. I needed somebody to keep me calm.
Yeah.
So I threatened to walk, and I think I quite possibly would have died if I left. So they let him in eventually, and they let him stay with me overnight because I said the same thing. If you don't let him stay with me. I can't stay here without him.
Yeah.
Like, think about all the emotions that have happened in the last 24 hours. I shouldn't be alone.
No, definitely.
So they said to me that night, tomorrow morning we'll give you a scan, because they had to do it themselves with no pain relief, no, everything was emergency, has to do it right now. And they said, we'll give you a scan, make sure that we've got everything, which is quite inhumane, but fine. And then you can go home and this is over. So I said, great, fine. But then the guy that ran it, he's a man for a start, which I thought was quite interesting. Have no issue with that, but I did find it interesting because he said, oh, I know what you're going through. And I kind of thought,
a man running the sort of gynecology.
Yeah, and maternity as well.
Yeah.
I have no issue with a male midwife at all. Like, I have no issue, but just don't be like, oh, I totally understand.
Yeah, when you definitely do not. Yeah, it's obvious you don't. Yeah.
You might understand the emotional side, but like, I'm in agony here. You can't say you understand.
Yeah.
But he came around and he said, we're not going to scan you. You don't need a scan. You can just go home. And to be fair, I should have said, no, scan me. But I wasn't thinking straight, and neither was my partner. We wanted to go home. It was the 24 hours from hell.
Yeah.
The whole reason we picked that route was so that we could do it at home and each other. And I don't think we had time to grieve or have anything set in, because it went from 0 to 100 really quickly. So we got home, and then this is where the problem starts, because they said, right, wait 3 weeks and then do a test. Your pregnancy test should be negative in 3 weeks time. So I said, fine. I did remember 1 or 2 before the 3 week mark, and they were stark positives, like completely positives. And I was like, okay, well, I'll wait until 3.5 weeks, still positive. And I tested positive up until about maybe 2 weeks ago. Well, to be honest, I might still be positive. The last test I did was positive. So I called and they said, we'll bring you in for a blood test. And that was negative. But my urine tests, and honestly, I've got about 25 of them in a box.
Wow.
And they were all positive, all of them. And there were different brands as well.
Yeah.
So I was like, I understand the bloods are far more accurate because you can tell exactly how much of the hormone is there.
Yeah.
But it didn't sit right with me that the blood said negative, but these 20 other tests said positive. And then they just basically said, just stop testing. They just brushed it away and said, well, it is what it is. Stop testing. It's upsetting you. But I wanted to know why.
Yeah.
So I decided to, my partner has, we have joint health insurance. So we had a chat with a private midwife, and she gave me more on the phone than any of the doctors did in person. But then I think it was about 8 weeks after it all happened, I started spotting a little bit. And remember, I hadn't had a period for like forever at this point. So I started spotting, and I hate, sorry, too much information. I hate pads so much. I feel like I'm wearing a big nappy. I can't stand them. So yeah,
I don't mind.
I think especially the hospital, they're like this. It's ridiculous. I prefer tampons because I feel like I'm not on my period. So popped one in, and then within about an hour it felt hot, like red hot, and it was burning. I was like, there is something wrong. Ran upstairs, went to the toilet, and I felt this push, and I passed this retaining product, and for me it looked like a little hand. So that in itself, sorry, let me shut down WhatsApp because that's getting in the way. That 8 weeks later, and I passed that. I should have kept it, but I'd like to show the doctor. Freaked me out, so I just because it's scary, it's horrible. So I then called the hospital and said, look, this has just happened, and for love nor money they would not admit that it was retained product. They said no,
Right. Yeah.
because they already said, hadn't they, before, it can't, you have no retained products because your blood test was negative. So if they then said yes, that's probably what it was,
Yeah.
I could screw them over, and I wouldn't do that.
Yeah.
It made me feel insane, and I was I'm telling you, I know what this is. And they just wouldn't have it. They said it was a decidual cast, which is when the whole lining of the uterus sheds at once, and it kind of looks like a triangle. And I'm like, no, that's not what this looks like at all. They wouldn't see a photo. I said, I can send you the photo. Like, please just look at it. And they were like, no, we can't see photos because of confidentiality, even though I send photos to my doctor, and that's fine. But they wouldn't even look at that. So I then I kept calling them, and I'm like, I'm scared that this is going to happen again. If like I could get sepsis, this is old tissue, you know, like that's dead tissue. So I begged them to see me, they wouldn't. And then I went to a private doctor, showed them the photo, and they said, no, that is exactly what you think it is. I'm really sorry that you had to go through that. But then it gets even worse. Like, it gets worse. So after that, I got a letter from the NHS to say that I can go for a scan. And I'd been asking for a scan to check there was nothing there. So I was like, fantastic. They finally listened, because I did yell at them a bit. Didn't yell, I was just stern. And I said, I've been through enough. Can you just scan me, please? So they booked me an appointment for a scan. I was like, great. I turned up. Firstly, it was in the maternity ward, and I was like, oh, this is a weird place to do this. And I'm surrounded by pregnant women. It's not that I would ever, like, I'm not bitter about it. There are a lot of women that are. I'm not bitter about it at all. It's just kind of the last place I want to be.
Yeah, it's hard to watch and look at.
They're all coming out of their scans smiley with these little photos. I'm so happy for them, but it's bad for me. So I got there, and they said, I said, look, I've got a scan. This is my name. And they said, oh, okay, how many weeks are you? And I said, I'm not. And they went, oh, okay. If you go and sit in that room, I'll get somebody to come and see you. So I said, okay. But what had actually happened was they didn't update the system. So that was my birthing plan appointment and scan. And I let loose then, because I was already upset, and I was like, how can you not just update a system and make women go through this? So at that point I did say, this is ridiculous. I feel completely overlooked. I feel like you just don't care. And I said, do you realize how hard this has been? It's not like, even when things go well, it still sucks, but this really sucks. And you've brought me here among all of these very happy pregnant women, just shove it in my face because you couldn't be bothered to adjust the system. So this all happened in November, 25th of November, this happened. And I've only, like 2 weeks ago, I got some letters from the hospital with some help, as in, you can go to this counsellor, blah, blah, blah. And it was only because I called and asked them.
So they wouldn't even given you any mental health support unless you it.
They gave me nothing. They gave me I got a letter in January saying the reports have confirmed you had a miscarriage. Hopefully next time it will be fine. Kind regards. That was it. That's all I had. And I mean, it's such a common thing. I think so. People say it's 1 in 3, but the doctor said it was 1 in 2. And yet we're all made to feel like this is something so common
thing, and they still haven't got it up together.
No, and it's such a horrible thing to have to go through anyway. And I've lost all my trust and all my faith in them, because I actually said to my partner, I thought that, you know, when they couldn't diagnose me with endo for so long, that, you know, maybe that was because I was young or, you know, whatever. But I honestly thought that when something like this happened, they'd be more on it, but they weren't. So I ended up having to pay loads of money to go private and have a scan and get checked. Because like I also said that, how will I know if we decided to try again? We haven't made that decision, but if we did decide to try again, how would we know if that positive test was new? I can't just live my life with positive tests forever.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I'm on iron supplements now because I lost so much blood. But I just feel that they've done nothing. They've done, and I said I was going to complain when it's not so raw anymore and it's not emotive and it's just facts, then I'll complain. But right now I'm still trying to navigate my way through it. And I did say to them, how am I meant to move on if you can't tell me that it's 100% done? How am I meant to just do normal things again? Like, it's not possible. And I feel that this sucks, you know, having a miscarriage sucks. And I said to the midwife, if it had been that and then everything had gone okay and none of this bit would have happened, I wouldn't be quite so frightened to try again. And I wouldn't place any blame on anyone because it's one of those horrendous, horrible things that does happen. But my issue, my fear is everything that happened because of those doctors. And can I also note, when I was about 6 weeks, 7 weeks, I went to my GP and I said, there's something wrong. I feel weird. Like, I know I'm hormonal, but this is a lot. And I lost all joy in anything. And I would just sit there. I was really happy that I was having a baby, but I was so miserable in myself. And I said, look, I have an overactive thyroid. And at that time, I didn't know that thyroid issues can cause miscarriage. Had no idea. And I said, could you test me to make sure that hasn't flared up again? Because it did burn out. And she said, you don't need that. You're just really hormonal. It is normal at this point in your pregnancy. And then I went back the week after and I was like, look, I feel worse. Please test my thyroid. I'm sure there's something wrong. And she said, you do not need it.
Really? She would know out of anyone that a thyroid issue could cause miscarriage.
So that was at 8 weeks. And then baby, no heartbeat from 9 weeks. And like, I would never know.
Yeah.
But I definitely, like, there is a chance.
Yeah, definitely.
And that's because they
didn't get the opportunity to do that. Yeah, definitely.
Wouldn't listen, wouldn't do anything that I asked. And her advice was always, oh, it's your hormones, just rest. And I think even outside of pregnancy, that's the go-to, isn't it? It's
come back later, come back 2 weeks later. Yeah, definitely.
And especially with women, it's always, you know, it's this time of the month. And like
hormones and stuff like that, definitely.
So yeah, that's what happened to me.
Oh my gosh, that's awful.
It's not great.
Yeah, no, it's definitely one of those things that the NHS is just really not good at, is just listening.
Yeah, and I think everything was quite clinical. There was it was always like, oh, well, next time it will be fine. I'm like, but it's not like I'm just replacing like a candle or something that didn't work. Next time won't be this baby, will it?
Yeah.
Still okay to grieve over this one, even if, and what if, and their go-to was, well, next time it'll be fine. What if I didn't want to do it again?
Yeah.
I'd feel really guilty because they kept pushing that on me. So
yeah,
I think there's a lot of things like their care and their bedside manner. I don't rate it. The women, I think some of them were really lovely. But the vast majority of them were very to the point.
Yeah. Oh dear. Yeah.
But yeah, I'm hoping that, like, it does terrify me. I do, because I do want children.
Yeah.
And I'm happy to take the risk. I don't have a problem with the risk. It's just, I don't trust them to look after me now. And I should be able to trust them.
And going private's just too much money. The average person just can't afford it. So
it's so expensive. I mean,
NHS.
Yeah, we're covered, but we are covered for certain things. I don't think like birth is one of them. We can't do that. unless we
Interesting that birth isn't covered when it's quite like a thing that a lot of people go through. You'd want it to be covered.
Yeah, 100%. But I do think even outside of pregnancy is such a massive thing for women.
Yeah.
But even outside of pregnancy, I know there's a lot that women particularly feel so overlooked. And I mean, when you're going to talk about your health, you do have to be quite vulnerable, and that takes a lot of courage, and you feel like you're not met with the same like respect.
Yeah.
But I said to the lady, like I said, this whole process has not been good enough. And her comment to me was, well, it's much better than it used to be. And I said, well, that's still not good enough.
No.
I said, with all due respect, it actually makes no difference what it used to be. I don't care how far you've come. The point is you need to be further. And how can it not be? How can you say that it's better than it used to be when you've done nothing? That's not the only way that this could be better, is if in your day, not only did they do nothing, but they made you feel awful about it. That's the only way. Otherwise, it's exactly the same.
Yeah, definitely.
And when I was like successfully pregnant, I was looked after. So it's kind of you have to be carrying a baby to be listened to at all.
Wow. Yeah. Oh my gosh, that's
not nice, is it? I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. That's really interesting though. That's with the endometriosis, how long did it take to get a diagnosis for that from 16 to
16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 5 years?
5 years to get, because endometriosis, it's one of those things, it's quite common. And have a diagnosis for 5 years for endometriosis it's
a long time, and it did impact. I mean, I was younger then, so I wasn't thinking about kids or anything.
I
was at university, but it did impact, like my work life was bad because I was off all the time, and I felt awful. I like working. Couldn't do that. I could barely leave my house. Socializing was really hard. It ruined a lot for me. And I think it could have been like, now I know that I still have endometriosis. I can have millions of laparoscopies. It grows back so quickly. So now I've got my pain relief and I know when to take it, and I can work around it because I know what I'm dealing with. But back then I didn't. They kept telling me that it was in my head. So like they put me on antidepressants and stuff, and I was like, this isn't going away. So I think sometimes they just want you to shut up.
They want you to just walk out the door and not come back.
And antidepressants is a great way to do that, but why would you give me antidepressants if I'm not depressed?
Wow. Have you had any other women around you, like family or friends, that have gone through like not exactly a similar experience, but an experience of being overlooked by the NHS?
I mean, my auntie isn't overly well. She's got fibromyalgia, and I know that she is now going private. I'm not entirely, if I'm honest, I'm not entirely sure what happened there. But I know that she forks out quite a lot of money for private care because it didn't work for her. So I don't know the ins and outs of it, but I know she has felt overlooked. My cousin, her daughter, she weirdly seems to have the same things as me. So she just had a laparoscopy, but she went private because they tried to make her wait something stupid like 4 months.
Oh, really?
She's training to be a teacher as well. She basically copies everything I do, which is fine. But she's 7 years younger than me.
Okay.
And she is training to be a teacher, and it keeps getting in the way. And like with endometriosis, you get the worst, heaviest periods. And so she's trying to teach, and she just bleeds through her clothes.
Wow.
And it's embarrassing for her. She teaches little ones.
That wouldn't understand, obviously.
No, they think she's dying, and they panic.
Yeah.
Like, she's had parental complaints about it. And there's nothing that she can do. And it's all because they didn't just sort it when, I'm not saying prioritize things that aren't emergencies. I'm not saying that.
Yeah.
But come on, 4 months. And I'm sure if it was a man, it would be done a lot quicker.
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, I'm all for girl power. My business, like, I'm a copywriter, like, you know, and I do that from my own business. It's, you know, I've done it all myself. I left teaching, I did this full time, I love it. And I only write for women, don't write for men. I have no issue with men. I love men. Some of the people in my life are men, but society has a really screwed up way of, and I think it does extend to the medical world more so than most industries, to be honest. The minute, like, when my partner had a bad stomach, he had a bad stomach, like a tummy ache, for, I think it was like a week and a bit. So he never goes to the doctors, and that's a separate issue in itself, is that they feel embarrassed to go to the doctors because they're scared of weakness. But I pushed him to go to the doctors, and he got there, and he had a scan booked for 2 days later. Everything in and out. He had like a gallstone or something, whatever. Got medicine for it. He was treated. He was fine. It took him a week from seeing the doctor, getting a referral, going to the scan, being cured. And it took me 5 years.
Yeah, with your endometriosis.
Yeah. And it's the same kind of, I mean, mine is more crampy, but it's in the same area. The only difference is he's got a penis and I've got a vagina. That's the difference. That's it.
And they can't blame the hormones or you feeling crazy or anything like that.
Never tried to gaslight him. Never. And that's exactly how I feel. I feel in both situations, for me, I feel gaslighted, and I feel like they tried to make me think I was crazy. And I got so much satisfaction when the doctor comes round after the surgery. I'd just woken up, and he said to my mother, I understand why she's been in so much pain. She was covered. And I was like, yes, I told you.
Yeah, why did it take till after the surgery to find this all out? Yeah.
And there's this sense of, well, I know better. And they do. I get that.
But they don't listen, which is the issue.
Yeah, and I kind of feel like it's I can feel my own body. I can feel what's happening. So, like, I'm not saying I know exactly what's going on, but I'm telling you that you saying it's in my head is wrong.
Yeah, definitely.
So yeah.
Well, thank you. That's a lot of information. I am recording, so I'll go back on this if that's okay, like when I'm writing up and stuff.
When you're done, can I have a look at it?
Yeah, for sure. I don't know if it'd be great, but it'll be something. So
I'd love to have a look at it. The way that you write will be so different, because I'm trained to write for businesses, whereas like, I'm really excited to read it. When's your deadline?
I think it's 7th of April. So
okay, well, you have my email, don't you? And you have my Twitter as well. Do you follow me on Instagram?
No, I don't.
It's yeah, if you follow me on Instagram, I'm far more active on that.
Okay.
I don't use Twitter. I only use Twitter to reach out to people like this.
Yeah.
But if you follow me on Instagram, then when you're done and you're happy, and if you want me to, I can share it with people.
Okay. Yeah, that'd be cool.
It might bring you some traction. I mean, in this space, it is literally like, look what I did, share it with everybody. So yeah.
Yeah, I was just wondering also, because like, one of the requirements is that you have the person's name, email, and number. So I was just wondering if it's possible to get your number, if that's okay with you. It's not going to go anywhere but my lecturers.
No, that's fine. Just so you know, I don't know whether it needs to be like your legal name. Amy is my middle name, but it's how everybody knows me, which is why I
I'll keep it as Amy's.
Yeah, please. But yeah, you're more than welcome to have my phone number. I'll send it to you.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for talking to me.
That's all right. I hope you have a lovely day, and let me know when you're done.
Yeah, I will. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. See you later.